All right, so here's basically where this panel is coming from, right? So over the last 15 years or so, as physical distribution died down and digital started, artists had a whole lot of options for getting their music out. You know, when TuneCore launched, anyone could put a song on the DSPs instantaneously. You could go the independent label route. You could do a direct deal with a larger distributor. And as the sort of SoundCloud rap phenomenon exploded, the majors who started to become disintermediated from the process of developing artists, you know, arguably they didn't have as much to offer when anyone could get money, anyone could distribute their music themselves. Majors started signing artists really early and have created this kind of strange echo chamber where they're signing artists when they're super young off one or two singles, and it's giving, you know, they're throwing out large sums of money, oftentimes not equal to the amount of money that that artist might necessarily earn on their own. And so it's created this really interesting set of opportunities for artists. So I wanted to get this panel together to talk sort of about different paths that artists have taken. All these people represent independent artists who, you know, have worked within majors and outside. And so it's a topic really around options. So I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves, and then we'll dig in.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. My name is Amaechi Uzoigwe. I manage a rap group called Run the Jewels. I've been a manager for about 20-something years. You know, and respect. And I currently have a management company called Forum Arts and Science. Represent LP from Run the Jewels as well. A young African rock band from Mali called Songhoy Blues. A dope-ass rapper named Amaechi, Nigerian-American rapper who's somewhere around here. I founded an organization called A2IM, which is the trade organization for independent music in America. Founding chairman, sorry.
Nice, nice.
And I've just had my hands in a whole lot of things over the years, and I'm happy to share whatever perspective or knowledge or advice that I can offer today.
So my name is Bob Celestin. I'm an entertainment attorney, been practicing for over 30 years. Used to be a manager also. Presently represent some of the quote-unquote SoundCloud rappers from Designer. Now represent the estate of XXXTentacion. I represent a rapper named Tekashi 6ix9ine who's on a little bit of a vacation right now. Pop Smoke, Zima, a bunch of different folks. I represent independent labels, producers, songwriters, and happy to be here.
What's going on, y'all? My name is Carl Lamarre, Billboard hip hop editor.
And fellow Haitian.
Fellow Haitian, Sac Passe.
Zoe Power, baby.
I've been in the game for 10, 11 years, been with Billboard for the last 2. Interviewed Kendrick Lamar, Lil Wayne, Future, Travis Scott, Post Malone. My job pretty much entails, obviously, interviewing these guys, but also trying to break new artists too, and emerging artists, and make sure they're able to get a platform on Billboard, because I know it's not easy. So my job, especially, you know, being a brother, trying to get my people in the doors.
Hi, I'm Michelle McDevitt. I'm a co-founder of Audible Treats. We're a PR company based in New York and LA. 2019, sorry. 2019 is our 15-year anniversary, so we've been around for quite a while and seen a lot of trends throughout the years. We do PR for a ton of people. People often ask me, you know, what is it, like, how do you choose your clients? Is it because do they have to be big, or do they, you know, do they have to be poppin' necessarily right now? And so, you know, we work with both major artist-signed majors and indies. And my answer to them is always like, it doesn't matter, you can be indie or major. For us, the way that we choose our clients most of the time is that we see where you are now, we see your potential, and if we think that we can fill that gap, that's who we gravitate towards taking on as a client. Some of our clients include Young Dolph and Key Glock, Lil Durk. We just finished a campaign with Amaechi. Who else? Oh, I have so many. I hit you up like every day. Maxo Cream.
You got Lil Tecca.
Who?
Lil Tecca.
Lil Tecca. Who else do we have? We have a ton. We also do Rolling Loud. We do a lot of Alamo, a lot of Empire, and Baja Beach Fest, which is a Latin trap and reggaeton festival happening in Baja, Mexico in like 3 weeks. So yeah, a lot of rap and rap-related brands.
I'm David Ponte. I'm the co-founder of Audiomack and the CMO, Chief Marketing Officer. And for those that don't know, Audiomack is a streaming platform and app. We focus on discovery, focus on emerging artists, focus on expert curation, and if you don't know about Audiomack, you should definitely download it and get a feel for it. But we help break a lot of artists. May not get a lot of credit sometimes, but we definitely are behind a lot of the popular artists today, being huge stars. And I'm excited to be here and talk with everyone.
And you might see Audiomack subway ads right now, because
That's right,
what
Dave.
you guys are doing.
We're on the subway. So.
Yeah.
What's going on, y'all? Some similarities here. I'm the managing director of A3C and partner in the business. A3C is a festival and conference, started 15 years ago in Atlanta. Actually started after, or kind of the evolution of it was after a 13-hour trip to South by Southwest with 2 15-passenger vans full of artists. I used to manage artists and producers as well, and being like, why the fuck are we driving to Austin, Texas to showcase hip-hop? Didn't make a lot of sense, so I had 13 hours on the way back to think about it, and wanted to build a platform for discovery and finding discovery for artists. So today we have about 500 artists performing over 5 days in Atlanta. We have about 350 speakers. We partner with almost everyone you've seen speak here today. So we are from Audiomack to SoundCloud to Patreon to Genius. We announced some of our speakers a couple weeks ago, but we'll be rolling out what we're doing over the next 2 months. We work with everyone. We're a platform, so it's not about me, what I want to do. It's about what we see here. So got in the business by managing artists. I think that's a common theme you'll see with a lot of people that are in hip hop. Yeah, happy to be here today. Hope y'all learned something.
All right, so this is a question for everybody. Let's start talking about young artists first. So for a young artist, how should they be thinking about creating deals, creating a team? How should they go about strategizing their overall sort of business tactics for their career?
I'll start. I think you should be focusing on your music first. Obviously, I believe that probably given, right? But a lot of artists thinking about how they're going to get the Instagram popping or how they're going to do all this other stuff and how they look. Probably we should be focusing on how their music is and trying to create the best possible music, work with the best producers and engineers and in the best studios with the best equipment as much as they can. So I would say make the music as good as you can first and also practice a lot. You know, a lot of artists come into Audiomack where we have studios and I asked them, how many songs have you made? You know, sometimes they say 20, 30, which is an accomplishment if they are able to come. But, you know, like Malcolm Gladwell said, which is almost like a cliche at this point, but 10,000 hours, right? And you should make at least a few hundred songs before you think that you're ready and you're good enough to start focusing a lot of your effort on that. I'm not saying you can't do both simultaneously. But that's what I always say, just keep making music and then you try and pick these other pieces together as your music is evolving and refining and getting better.
What's your perspective, Amaechi?
I mean, I absolutely agree with the fact that the music has to be front and center, and the quality and the craft and all of that is critical. But context is also critical. Not everybody has access to the same resources. Not everyone has access to the same structure. Not everyone has access to the same mentoring or information or whatever it may be. So you may have a kid who comes in off the street polished and done this and had lessons and played in the church or went to band camp or whatever the fuck, excuse my language, it may be. And then you may have another kid who came out off the streets or off the farm, I don't know, you know what I mean, who has nothing but a dream and talent. and has nobody to ever tell them how to do it this way or that way. So it gets complicated, or complex, right? And so I think it is about the context of that artist, and if they really have the talent and the desire, right, to pursue, to put themselves, it's one of the hardest jobs in the world, don't let anyone fool you. It is a tough gig, right? But if you have that talent and the determination, almost a delusional sense of determination that you're going to make it, and you surround yourself with the right people, I mean, that's critical. So I try and look at each artist individually, like where they're coming from, right? And not judge them on, do they not have this done yet? Or is their mind not right about this, and are they good, first of all, you know what I mean? Is someone I can work with? And if so, if you believe in them, you can build something if you really believe that they're the artist as a manager, or even as a record label, to circle your wagons around. But the first thing first is, in my, I tend to draw a line between artists and entertainers, and that's not to judge anyone. Like, certain people are coming to the game for different reasons. Some people want to be famous, and great. Some people want to have long careers and make music that means something to people and have a lasting career, etc. So figure out which one you really are, right, and which one you want to commit to, and then go all out for that. Like, it's hard to be, if you're really lucky, you're both. You're a prince, right? You're able to do both. That's almost never, right? You're either an entertainer or an artist. Doesn't mean you can't be an artistic entertainer or an entertaining artist, you know what I mean? But some people want to be celebrities, some people want to be artists. And again, I'm not judging. You got to figure out what you want to be and then go for that.
Bob, what do you think?
I'd add to that, the single most important factor that I find lacking a lot of, some of my younger clients that come in, I've been a manager too, is the inability or the lack of a work ethic, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is, as the brother just said there, this is not a walk in the park, right? This is some hard-ass work. And I would say maybe 95% of you guys in this room don't have the work ethic to become successful. No disrespect, I'm just keeping it 100, right? When you are focused on achieving a goal, there's a lot of things that are going to suffer, right? Relationships, out the door, right? To be honest, either you have a partner that's going to be supportive and really help you and understand that, hey, you're going to be in the studio, you're going to be doing this or that, or you're not. So if you're focused on, my boyfriend or my girlfriend or whatever, this is not the game for you, right? Just stick with your day job. This could be a hobby, but this is not a game for you, right? Financially, you got to get it how you get it, right? Obviously, you should do things that are legitimate, like do legitimate work. But if I can tell you the number of times I've had clients that paid me with a paper bag full of cash, it's another story, okay? But at the end of the day, that's a sacrifice you're going to have to be able to make, and your time. It's funny that you were talking about the 10,000 hours, because I did a webinar on the 5 biggest mistakes keeping artists from getting a record deal, and I talked about the 10,000 hours. You have to perfect your craft. You have to be good at what it is that you're trying to do. If you're a rapper, you should be rapping every day. You should read. Rappers, read. Reading is fundamental. The more you read, the greater vocabulary, the more things you can talk about. Singers, get a vocal coach. Sing. You can't afford one. YouTube has vocal lessons. Eating the right way to make sure your voice is preserved. If you're going to be in a band, practice. That's the only way to get the Carnegie Hall, right? So at the end of the day, if you have that work ethic and that, like, this is all I want to do, I don't give a shit about what anybody else says, you're going to be successful.
Carl, what do you think?
Not to sound like a broken record, but I think everybody, on here is right. I think the biggest factor that you got to have is that work ethic and that drive. I think we got to also be realistic too. A lot of artists that are coming up, they don't necessarily have that budget. So it's like what Bob was saying. If you can't afford a vocal coach, then go on YouTube. There's a lot of artists that I know and that were able to make hits just from recording in their basement. So you don't necessarily need like
Garage band.
There you go. You don't need like a crazy like studio, like Jungle Studio or Daddy's House to make a hit. You can just take the littlest ingredients with what you have, and if you have the right drive, the right people around you, you'll be able to see that success within time. So I think patience is definitely a key element, and hard work is needed in order to really accelerate that dream to just go forward to where you need to go.
And let me add luck too, right?
Luck.
Luck for sure.
Luck.
And as my old football coach used to say, what is luck? It's preparation and opportunity crossing paths. He didn't invent that. That's been out there. But I look at that. I think about that every day. You know, am I feeling lucky today? Am I ready, right? Did I do the work? Because the door may open, and, you know, and you're ready, and you seize it, and you're off to the races. Or that door may open, and you're sitting on your hands because you didn't do the work, and it passes you by, and it will never be there again most times.
I think there's a 2.0 of luck. Something I'm thinking about is just how many shots you take.
That's right.
Because a lot of times it's, you know, you give up too
That's
soon,
right.
so longevity,
That's
but also
right.
like, man, like, you know, we might remember Kobe Bryant's like one hit, but he misses 80 game-winning
Absolutely.
shots before he hits the one that everyone
Absolutely.
remembers. So I will say adding on luck is preparation.
Right.
It's how many shots you take a little bit.
Absolutely. We say that with Run the Jewels, just keep the ball in play. You
Yeah.
never know. Just keep it on the field. You never know. You never know. Something might happen. Something crazy might happen. And then it happens, and you're like, I'm glad I stayed with it, because if you're not on the field, if you're not in the game, then there's no opportunity to win, right? Okay.
To add on to that, you know, not to be cliche, but the brother, he's potentially about to break the record next week, Lil Nas X.
Right.
Just last year, he was on his couch, and he was just chilling. I think y'all worked with the producer, but he went online. Keo went online, just picked out a regular beat. He didn't go to a Just Blaze. He didn't go to a Timberland.
Paid $30
Paid $30, and now the brother's about to potentially have the longest #1 on the Hot 100.
Yeah, but keep in mind though, before he put that record out, he was consistently putting out.
He was.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this goes to
prepared.
to what Mike is saying. The C word, consistency. I've had clients come to my office and they'll say, "Oh, I got a project." I say, "Oh, great. When did you put the project out?" I said, "A year ago." Okay, well, what have you done in that year? Oh, you know, I'm in the studio. I'm trying to get the record. I'm like, this generation doesn't work that way. That's my, like, I'm the oldest one. Well, me and you are probably the oldest ones, right? This generation is like, put a record, put it out, put it out, put it out, post. You got to be consistent. You're not consistent, like you can keep the ball, like you said, to keep taking shots. Oh well. Yeah. On to the next.
I do think there's a difference between. I agree, but there's a difference between putting out a ton of records.
Right, they're
and
crap.
being consistent,
You don't want to
right?
put crap shit out.
You know, not everyone is Gucci, right? And you can put out 1 million albums a year, and they're all pretty good, right? You know,
He's a gym rat, though.
yeah, he's
in the studio
He's in there
recording.
working, and he's putting them out, and he has a formula, right, that works well.
But there are a lot of gym rats who are out there putting in the work who are never going to make it either, though, right? There's a lot of people, you know, I think that's just the nature of the platform, like, and the culture, like, put it out. Only a handful of those are going to be good, right? Just only like a tiny fraction of football players or basketball players or anything else are going to the big game. You know what I mean? That's just reality of the world, right? Only a small amount at the top are going to win. Right?
I'd like to bring, I'd like to bring up two things that haven't been brought up in the work ethic thing, which is, well, timing also is part of luck. But not surrounding yourself with yes men, I think is really important.
Or yes, women.
Or yes,
Yes,
or yes
people.
women. Yeah, I mean, why would you want a team that just agrees with you? You know, everything that you do. You want people that are going to challenge
back.
you and bring you up to your full potential, because sometimes you don't realize that. So, you know, when your auntie or your grandma says, like, that song's amazing, and that song's not amazing, like, or your homies are saying that's amazing
don't let
or
your
whatever.
grandma
like,
be
you
your
gotta
A&R.
do
Yeah.
it. What'd you say?
I said, probably don't let your grandma be your A&R either.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, just surround yourself with people who challenge you to do the best that you can be. And then the other thing which I have to deal with as PR is basically like these Twitter fingers, you know, like, and that comes with, I think, that patience and that maturity comes with age, you know, and experience. But, you know, like, I've been on a press run with E40 for the past 4 days. I'm very exhausted. But, you know, he's been in the game for 30 years. He's dropping his 28th album tomorrow. 28th solo album. So we're not talking about
real
group
G.
albums or anything like
That's
that,
a
you
real
know?
G.
And he is just a leader in being a classy man, like a dude. He never brings up controversy. If there's any kind of, attack at him online, you don't see him with the Twitter fingers, you know what I mean? He's all about being a role model for his label with like the youth at large. And, he never badmouths anybody. He never uses controversy to sell stuff. He just stays in his lane and he makes consistent music. He works with a lot of young people too, so that, they can learn the game from him, and then he can kind of get their perspective too. And he's just an example of someone who just, is not really out there like causing a lot of trouble. And somebody might say, well, controversy sells. That's true too. It's exhausting and it's very risky, I think.
Facts.
You would, it's super risky.
And it doesn't necessarily bring longevity either.
Right, he might be known as that jackass.
Right.
And it can be really expensive, too.
So
Legal fees.
Michelle, you touched
Job security.
you touched upon surrounding yourself with the right team. So one thing I wanted to go into is let's play a fantasy scenario where an artist has dropped some tracks, got a whole lot of streams, and has options. Right? They have labels coming at them, majors, independents. They have managers who are like proposing keeping a team independent. How should an artist be thinking about making decisions at the early part of their career in what kind of team to build? Let's start with Dave.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in that scenario, that's good, right? So you wanna put yourself in that position. I think it depends on the artist. And you actually mentioned earlier, a lot of the major labels are just signing everyone, right?
Right.
And I think it's a similar approach that venture capitalists do. They invest in 100 companies, and 2 or 3 of them will work out to be, Ubers or one of these big companies, right? So it's like kind of a spray and pray, but that Uber is going to pay for all the investments and then some. So I think a lot of the labels are doing a similar approach. Now, is that good for the other 98 artists that they signed, that they're focusing on the big artists?
That's right. That's right, I was about to say.
Decades.
They're signing them more and more now than they were, though. There's more
Yeah, we're
signings.
definitely in a bubble.
And it's due to the streaming and the fact that you can put music out and it's cheaper and it's more inexpensive and quicker to put music out and get people to listen to it. But I think it depends on the artist. It depends on the team around them. If you don't necessarily have a great team around you, you maybe have 1 or 2 people, then working with a label or a distributor and getting some of the extra packages that they offer to help promote and do playlists and stuff like that, maybe that is the right decision. But if you have a really good team around you, then staying independent and just building that up and gaining leverage so that eventually you can sell your publishing, you can get a 3-album deal. And the more leverage you have and the more followers you have, both literally and figuratively, is going to give you the ability to get a better deal at that point and also have some negotiating power.
And Bob, what do you think?
So if the scenario is such that you've gotten yourself to a level where you have more than one label chasing after you, right? You're an artist. For an attorney, that's like our wet dream, right? At the end of the day, we've got 2 or 3 labels that are actively wanting to sign you to a record deal. So my general philosophy, especially as a black attorney who represents a lot of black clients, is that I like my clients to be rich. I would like them to be in a position where they can take care of their family and get themselves out the hood if that's where they are. So generally speaking, my job is to kind of like drive up, or we call it run the numbers, right? Now, there's pluses and minuses to that, right? Because you can get signed to a label and get the most advanced, and then the label doesn't do shit for you or doesn't really promote and market you after a certain point. We don't really want that kind of scenario, right? But then we don't want a scenario where you're being underpaid, and then when your record does come out, it doesn't perform, right? So a lot of times I have clients that come and say to me, oh, I want to do a deal, but I don't want to take an advance because I have to pay it back. And then I have to constantly remind them, I'm like, listen, an advance is not a loan. Like, when you buy a house and you take a loan out, what happens if you don't pay back the loan? They take the house. If you don't pay back the advance, oh well, they write it off on their at the end of the year on taxes, right? So it behooves you to get as much as you can, right? Now, so what I can do, or what I often try to do, is to negotiate in these agreements that you'll have some, independent money to market and promote your record, because sometimes you get signed to a label, the A&R person or whatever gets fired, and nothing's going on with your project, right? So you need to be in a position where you're able to, you know what, let me go hire Michelle to handle, to do my PR, or whatever the case may be. The more leverage that I have, the more that I can reduce the amount of product that you actually have to commit. So I've done one album deals, right? You deliver one album and you're done. You're a free agent, you can go do whatever you want. I've done EP deals. The most likely scenario for a lot of up and coming artists is a single deal, where the label will do a single deal, they're hedging their bets, and you may not have album material, whatever the case may be. And then they have an option to do an EP or an album, right? All of this is negotiable, right? So, but generally speaking, with the clients that I've had, I can honestly say to you that they are millionaires, like after taxes, and that's a real thing, right? So I have to do the extra step, which other lawyers don't really have to do, is to sit down with my clients and say, okay, great, you got this paper. You need to get a financial advisor. You need to get an accountant, right? You need to think about alternative investments. In the event that this doesn't happen, right? This record, okay, maybe this one record happens and nothing else happens. Where are you, right? So I don't want you going back to the street, if that's where you're coming from. I don't want you doing crazy shit to keep, because you got to keep up your image. So generally speaking, at the end of the day, right, if you can get a label to give you a lot of upfront money, and they are, to your point, they're signing a lot of artists. I tell a lot of my clients, this is the greatest time to be a hip-hop artist or an R&B singer, point blank, and I've been doing this 30 years, right? How long this will last, I don't know. I think it will keep on lasting, because at the end of the day, hip-hop and R&B or black artists have always been the ones that are the culture creators at the end of the day. So having said that, my job is to protect you, make sure that, when you turn 40, 50, 60, 70 years old, that you're sitting on something. All right?
The temptations to take that money, though, comes with a price, though, right? Often the deal terms are shit, the margins are low.
No. I have to disagree. Not if I have leverage. The deal points are a lot better, right? You have major labels that are now doing deals that are a lot more favorable to the artist than they once did.
A lot of partnership deals.
A lot of ventures. You have companies like Empire and United Masters that are just strictly doing net profit deals, right? So it's like, all right, you know what? Well, dollar comes in, you'll get 50, I'll get 50, keep it moving, right? So it used to be like what you said, where the deals are really, really bad. But again, this is like a frenzy. I've never seen it this way, where labels are. I always tell people I'm Bobby Schmurder. I'm like the hot nigga right now, because I got labels calling me, Bob, I'm coming to town. Let's have lunch. Let's have dinner. What are you working on? What are you working on?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great situation right now.
So, but typically, does the money come down? You talked about a 50-50 net profit split. When that happens, does the advance money come down as the margin goes up for the artist?
Well, again, it all depends. I've done deals where the money's been 7 figures, and it's a 70-30 split in favor of my client. Because I got the leverage, right? I would never do a deal.
70-30 split is not a contract term. Can you tell me how that
It's a
works?
70-30 split of net revenue, right? Without a whole bunch of deductions and all that crap and all that. That's one of the things that are really, really good. So at the end of the day, and then the label has more of an incentive. If I'm giving you 7 figures, then I'm going to do what I have to do as a record label to promote and market you and get my money back, right? So there's an incentive for the label to do what they need to do for the artist, right? But again, they're signing a lot of different artists. So maybe your record is taking a minute to really perform, and then they go sign somebody else. They go sign Lil Nas X. So now they're all focused on Lil Nas X, because Lil Nas X is going to give me and take care of what I just paid Bob's client. So now my client, I have to put them in a position where, okay, you know what? And this is something that a lot of artists do when they get record deals. They stop doing what it was that got them in front of the label in the first place. That's the worst shit you could possibly do. They stop posting, they're not doing record. Oh, I'm sitting back, the labels are going to help me. No.
Or they mix up their team.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
That's the other thing too. So at the end of the day, it's really a good time right now.
And one of the reasons why it's a good time is because there's more money in the music business now than
Correct.
there ever has been.
Correct.
So like we are in the golden age, not just hip hop. Hip hop is the most popular genre in the world, but streaming music has brought more, now that streaming platforms are able to, not just the advertising, but they're getting more subscribers. We are monetizing music, the music industry, more than it ever has. So like, even in numbers, so it's like $19 billion industry now, maybe worldwide, but maybe in the US. And like, in the 90s, it was like 9 billion. And just Google it, but it's yeah, Google
But
it.
I would disagree. I don't think it's the golden age.
I'm just,
I think we're before the golden age.
we're before the golden
Yes.
age.
What an
Well,
optimist
how,
you
All
are.
right.
Well, if you look about, I mean, how many people actually pay subscription for streaming? I know this number because Audiomack is a free platform, and I hope they make it even higher. It's even better for us and our artists that we're paying.
small percent.
A small percent, exactly. And I mean, a lot of the full catalog streaming companies aren't in a lot of these countries that have amazing talent and amazing artists and should be making more money.
Yeah.
Yeah, the pie is still pretty small, if you
Right.
think about it.
Correct.
And if you really think about it globally, that's where the future of the music business is.
Facts.
It's not in the West.
That's correct.
The numbers do not support that. Indonesia is as populous as America is. Nigeria is 200 million people.
But what-
India's about to overtake China in terms of population, and they're just starting to come online en masse. You see with the J-pop and the K-pop, and that phenomenon is going to dwarf Western music in the next 10 to 20 years. And that's where all the money's going to be made. The real money's going to be made in emerging markets once they fully come online, their infrastructures and their technologies come together, and their economies improve a little bit. You're starting to see it happen now. I mean, for Run the Jewels, Russia's the 4th biggest market. We never been
Facts.
there, never spent a penny there.
Correct. You
Hip-hop is exploding there.
never been to Russia?
No, they didn't want to go.
Oh, they're bugging. Oh my God, they're bugging.
Yay.
Designers there right now.
But, you know, so it's one of those things. You got to have a global purview when you look at it, and you got to look at collabs with other artists from other countries who may have a similar sound or something. Like if you can do some with an Indian artist or a Chinese artist, you better get on that because
BTS
their
is
markets
lit.
are going to be
BTS
way,
is so
way bigger
Facts.
than your market. And if you can appeal to a sliver of their in Brazil, Argentina, Kenya, you know, Ethiopia, you name it, right? These places are coming strong, and I think that's another opportunity for artists in the West, because the West still influences, right? It still is the leader in terms of influence, but I think to your point, it's the pre-gold rush. Like,
That's correct.
Once that really happens, it's going to be crazy
We're getting
for a lot of
8-figure.
people.
We're doing
Yeah.
8-figure advances. Trust me.
So,
And by the way, just
no problem.
hip hop is global.
It's absolutely global.
Global. I've had a chance to travel around the world. It's amazing to see how powerful this culture is, right? So those of you who don't have passports, time to get them.
So I want to keep it with Amaechi real quick and we talked about new artists. Now let's talk about artists in the shank of their career.
In the what?
In
their career?
the heart of their career,
The
right?
shank? Is that,
yeah,
is that
the
a,
shank, yeah.
Never heard that word before.
Yeah,
shank.
the sweet spot, the middle, the middle.
Gotcha.
You
I
know?
learned something new today. Thank you.
You know, often there's a bias in the music industry towards new artists, but like if your goal is longevity, which it should be, you're going to be 2, 3, 4 records in, and it's a little different. You have to navigate your business a lot differently. Let's talk about Run the Jewels, and here you have 2 artists on their 3rd group. You know,
Right.
2 gentlemen, you know, in their 40s who are creating this group together. How did you put together a strategy for putting together the right business situation for them?
I mean, honestly, it was 2 dudes who met, connected, they vibed musically, creatively, they got along, they made music together. They're like, hey, maybe we should do this, right? And honestly, there was no grand strategy in the beginning, and they just loved the music they were making together. They were both at a crossroads, right? Honestly, in their careers, they weren't sure where they were going to go. And they just connected, and then next thing you know, we're going to do a mixtape, which turned out to be the first album. And then they're like, we're going to put it out for free. And we're like, you're what? Like, what? Like, how are we going to make any money? And they said, just trust us.
Wow.
Trust us, and if the kids like it, we'll be good. And that literally was our strategy. And but once we embrace that, right, the power of that, once you understand that oftentimes it's the barriers to access, right? How are you going to get people to hear the music, right? That's an artist's biggest challenge in the beginning. And so we decided to just sort of deconstruct some of those barriers, like, hey, we'll give it to you, right, in exchange for your email address so we can keep in touch, right? And those things, and that worked. Right now we got over 500,000 email addresses in our, you know, and our newsletters go out to, and we can leverage that respectfully occasionally. But that was how it started, and we felt it's about the connection that the artist has with the audience, period. It begins there, and if you have something, you can develop it like we did which is organically. We didn't go through this sort of big machine system to do it. Then more power to you, because those fans aren't going anywhere.
Yeah.
Right? Those are not fans
Hardcore.
that just discovered you one day, this is the hot shit, and then move on the next day. They're going to be there, they're going to buy the merch, multiple merch items, right? They're going to keep buying it. They're going to buy we got a successful craft beer business. They buy that. We're launching the cannabis business. You'd be sure they're going to buy that too, right? Because there's a real connection between them and their audience that's not going away. And I think that for us, it was more about building on, just going with what was coming naturally, like, you know what I mean? And then we built pretty complex strategies once we knew we were onto something globally, et cetera, touring, et cetera. And it's worked out really, really well. But these guys are overnight sensations, 20 years in the making.
Yeah.
That's
And
the reality.
So you touched upon kind of the benefits of being independent and having to be, you know, crafty and come up with the strategies to really build a core connection with your fan base. So what are the benefits that you guys have seen for artists who have intentionally stayed independent, maybe with a strong independent label or just a really active manager? What are the benefits from all the perspectives, for live promotion, DSP, from a publicist, from a journalist perspective? Like, what the artists who stay independent and form that deeper connection with their fans and a smaller team around them, what are the benefits that you guys see in that scenario?
I'd say that in general, I'm going to generalize here, but they can move more quickly. There's a lot of clearance, a lot of formalities. I'm sure a bunch of you in the audience have been frustrated with like the 2-week deadline to submit for DSPs. Like with indies, you can submit, much sooner than that. You just get to move around. You can make changes. You can plan ahead a little bit more, or you can plan even a little less and drop things like, out of schedule, and you won't get like more than a slap on the wrist, unfortunately. But in general, yeah, you can just move more quickly, I'd say, with independent teams. In general, it kind of depends on where you land, but I'd say it's probably good to be a small fish in a big pond sometimes for artists than to be a small fish in a big pond. Meaning, if you go with an indie, sometimes there's just a lot more resources that you have access to in terms of just like heart and soul with the team itself.
So better to be a big fish in a small pond.
Right. In some ways, yes. I mean, when you're thinking about majors, sure, you can flex and say, I'm part of whatever major you are, but you're one of, 150 people on the roster. And so, if you're with an indie, you can be one of 20, and I think you'll get more attention that way. So you can kind of be a squeaky wheel at an independent, and they'll pay attention to you. If you're a squeaky wheel at the major, they're like, I'm sorry, I'm dealing with J. Cole, like, whatever, or whoever it happens to be. So, it just depends on who you're with and what's the best fit for you. But I think, I would say to generalize, indies are a little bit more boutique.
Carl, what's your perspective?
Well, the first thing that kind of came to my mind, I was just thinking about Nipsey before he partnered up with Atlantic. And, when he came out, he went to Cinematic, and he actually was on a major, and he ended up getting dropped. So what he ended up doing was, he's like, all right, so you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to bet on myself, all money in. And when he dropped Crenshaw, he was like, so you know what I'm going to do? There's no rules to this. I'm going to sell Crenshaw for $100 a pop. And the real supporters are going to end up coming out and showing love. To the point, Jay-Z was like, oh, I see what you're doing. I'm going to buy 1,000 of these myself. So where he was like, you know what? I got the people's trust. There's no rules to this. I'm going to double up. So when Mailbox Money came out, he sold it for $1,000 a pop. So I say all this to say when it comes to, you know, being independent, you can pretty much dictate your own pace and your own tempo. So I think from that standpoint, if you really relish freedom and you relish that creativity, then definitely consider going that route.
But I think you got to keep into consideration that he built. You have to have a core base.
You gotta have a foundation.
Correct.
Right.
Right. So someone like there's a lot of artists that are signed to independent to major labels, and they've either gotten dropped or they've asked to be released. And so one of the things that you said that was really informative was, you know, Run the Jewels has an email database, right? So a lot of artists don't do that because if you have a database of your fans and then you get dropped, well, if you can continue to market to those fans, you know, every time you put a new record out, that kind of thing, as long as it's, you know, you got the quality that they're used to, then you stand a shot of being here for a minute, right? For a long time. You have a core fan base.
And you own those emails.
That's correct.
You don't own your Instagram followers.
That's correct. So one of the things that I try to negotiate in these major label agreements is there's a clause in there where they say, you know, they want to be able to control to some extent your domain and all that during the term, and also collect all the data. And I said, well, okay, great, you can collect all the data as long as you make sure that we get whatever data, all the emails you're getting, all the, you know, the data with respect to, you know, the fans, we need to get it to. My clients need to get it too, right? So at the end of the day, all right, cool, we're no longer with you. We got this database, we'll keep it going.
That's right.
And so for a lot of like, a good example is Fat Joe, for example. You know, he was signed to a major label, got dropped, had a core fan base, went to Empire, released a hit record, boom, you know, he's back in the game, right? And he could just, you know, continue to keep putting records out for that fan base for as long as he wants, so.
I just want to underscore two things real quick. The data thing is critical because you hear about it all the time, big data, 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 data. Most people don't know what to make of this, right? At the end of the day, what's happening is every time people are harvesting all your information constantly on your line, what you're listening to, everything about you, and they're selling it. Businesses sell it to businesses for billions and billions and billions of dollars. It's nothing we can do really us to control that, right? But all you can do is control maybe the data that you get, right? And learn from it. With Run the Jewels, we use that data to learn. We're not selling it to anyone. If we did anything untowards with the data, our guys would fire us immediately because they care about their fans and the respect that they have for their audience. But you can learn an amazing amount from that data, right? But data is nothing until you measure it, right? So you get metrics from data by measuring one piece of data against the other, and then you get discernible information that you can learn from, like,
Would you send out questionnaires?
No, well, there's a lot of ways you can glean data. There's many ways, right? We can do it just from behavior, right? How long someone listening to something, how many items were purchased. You can stratify your audience into super fans. If you got people spending a lot of money every year, you know, you want to have a different conversation with them than you do the fan that spent $10 or no money, right?
And every streaming platform, every social media platform, like you
Gives you data.
Yeah, you own that data as your platform holder. So Facebook.
Well, you own some of it.
You don't own it.
You don't own what they have.
You have access to.
And you don't even have access to all they have.
You have access to your page.
Yes,
Right.
but
So
they
you
have
can-
so much granular data on us that they don't share with us,
Sure.
right? And they raise an enormous amount of money using all of our data, right? So I think as a community of artists, there needs to be a stronger push for us to get hold of our own data. I don't want yours or yours or yours or yours. I just want
yours.
mine,
Right.
right? And if you're out trading it and making money off of it and buying second and third houses because you're an executive at some second tier technology company that knows how to raise billions of dollars off of our data, that's a problem, right? That is a problem that we need to address as a community and not be exploited, because this is the new exploitation, right? And I get the principles of it. I get how important it is, but we got to have a little more control and ability to. And the other thing I'll say, last thing, get someone on your team who's good at math, I beg you.
That's why we're all the music industry.
Shout out to Amit, because if that's it's a fundamental part of this business is math, deals, the way the money breaks down, the way things are recouped, the way things are calculated, this percentage of this fractional royalty, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. by the time they're done with you, your head's spinning. You're like, oh shit, I should have taken trigonometry.
Right.
Because I don't know what the hell they're talking about.
That's when you gotta get a good
You know what
business
I mean?
manager at that point.
Get someone with that math brain that can see through that, can put all those pieces together and paint the picture for you in words and language that you can understand, right? I guarantee it'll change your decision-making process.
And one of the easiest things to do, going back to what you were saying, is like, you have a website. Somebody goes to your website. The first thing that should pop up is, hey, give me your email address. Give me your email address, and I'll give you like a new song or some shit, you know, the new picture, poster, whatever. Or when you do, you know, I've seen clients of mine who they'll do a show, and they'll have somebody with a clipboard just taking people's email addresses.
That's right.
And you put it in the database, and now you got this email, and this grows and it grows, and you're always communicating with them. Like, you know, you were talking about newsletters,
Yep.
right? Sending out newsletters every month. Yo, you know, Run the Jewels, we're here, we're there, whatever. We got a new record coming out, whatever, whatever. I mean, again, you got to have somebody on your team to do that. But those are some of the easier ways that you can do to make, because people have kind of forgotten about emails, and emails still
The
count.
conversion
It's the
rate,
most
I mean,
effective.
It's the most
Yeah.
effective.
So you want to sell some T-shirts?
Yes.
I want to open it up to questions. I believe there's a woman called Charlotte with a microphone. We can start
Start with
with.
the microphone.
Start with this gentleman in the back.
We could probably hear him.
Just talk loud, bro.
Yeah.
Hi, thanks.
What's your name?
Ahmed. Right. I work with.
Smartest man in the music business.
But I have a question. Just using a hypothetical where you have your fan base, you've done your thing, you've had your little bit of organic growth. Now you're ready to sort of step it up. You're getting a fantastic deal from a major label. We've all discussed how the music economy is a global economy, so you need reach, you need people on the ground wherever you are. Do you sign with a major or do you sign with an indie? The money is comparable, let's say. Indie's going all in. You're going to be probably the priority artist there. Major's taking a shot, of course, still. But you're ready to step it up to the next sort of level, as they say. Would you consider going with an indie, or would you go major?
I'll just make a quick answer here and let the other people answer after that. But it depends on if you value freedom or if you value the other thing, right? If you want, it's depending on the deal, obviously, that your counsel can negotiate for you. If you value freedom and you want to be able to drop things on your own schedule, you want to be able to interact with your fans one-on-one and bridge the gap between you and your fans, I think being independent is probably the decision there, especially if the money is equal. You know, I'm not saying you don't have freedom with a major label, because you can if you get a good deal and you have a good lawyer. But ultimately, if freedom is the most important thing to you and you want to own your masters, which again you could do with a major sometimes, but
I'd say, do you want to be a star or not?
That's a good
But
point,
also-
bro.
Because
That's
name
a
a
good
star
point.
on an indie label. They do exist. There are a few of them, right? Does any come rolling off the top right now?
Chance.
I mean, I could. Young
Star,
Bob,
superstar.
I could name
I'll say-
10
yeah.
Superstar. I mean, she's not really. Yeah, it's not the same. Super good superstar, right? And
That's a legitimate point.
and
we're
there's not the
also-
my
That's
point
a
being the major
legitimate
label
point.
is calibrated. These are institutional companies that have global footprints. They're calibrated to push mass volume, right? And they own these channels. If they think you're only selling 100,000 records, bye-bye, they're not interested. Why would they be?
So
It doesn't make sense for them. But if you want to be a superstar, you can start on an indie, but ultimately it's a major label that's going to.
I
But
think,
I
do you
always
want
think
freedom or do you want to be a superstar? I mean, a lot of times
Yeah.
you might have to.
Yeah,
balance.
absolutely.
But I always
It's a
say
real
that, like, if
choice.
someone's interested in you now, they'll be interested in you later too if you keep growing. So I don't see the rush in signing with a major.
And not all, like, we're comparing, like, there's two things. Like,
That's right, great point.
there's tons of indies that are different. It's not like there's
That's
there's
right.
majors that are different. There's sub labels and
That's
majors.
right.
Like, honestly, like, the biggest thing is who is signing you. I think we're not talking about. Like, there's so many things that are underneath every signing that, like, we're not comparing like one against.
It's not a
one.
binary, that's
it's
right.
not
It's an
binary
excellent-
at all.
excellent
Every
point.
indie is different. You have some amazing teams that I would sign with in a heartbeat. And there's some majors that are
Yeah.
just fucking, throwing darts. Like,
That's a
you
fact.
gotta
That's
figure out
right.
who on that team is smart, and are they working with you?
And is your team smart enough
Yeah.
and down enough to really work with them to propel it forward? Because you never know. But it is context. It's about the team. It's a huge risk.
Too often in
regardless.
music, people compare things like, yo, this worked for this artist, let's do that.
That's right.
Or, all these majors are the same, or all these indies are the same. It's like, man, all of us haven't done this for 10 plus years at least. Have we seen the same thing happen twice? Right? Like everyone has a different path. I mean,
Right.
granted, there's funnels in this business, like QC in Atlanta.
Sure.
But every artist they've signed, I've
That's
seen,
right.
is like, Little Baby, he's just like, yo, I like your vibe. You should rap.
Right.
He's one of the biggest artists on the planet right now.
So let's,
but-
let's,
but-
let's hear from artists.
So yeah, sorry.
Yeah, but you know what? But I just want to make a point. You bring up a good point
Sorry.
about the difference between
Sorry.
majors and indies. No, but you bring up a good point because ultimately, at the end of the day, when Napster hit, right, and then all the TuneCore and everybody came into existence, everybody's like, "Oh, the major label's over. Done. We don't need major labels anymore. Whatever, whatever." Except that the major labels have been around for 100 years. They're not going anywhere. And the two main reasons why major labels are still in the game. One, they control a lot of the marketing and promotion. Secondly, they control radio, right? Radio is still the number one way in which a lot of artists become stars, right?
I disagree
Now,
with that.
there's an argument to be made about, oh, this generation of kids, they don't listen to radio and all that. All that shit is all well and good. But every time you put on a radio station, you hear a record, whether it's Lil Nas X or whatever. Just now, Cowboy 147 is on the radio. I represent the producer that did the track, so I remember when it was just it was just on YouTube, whatever. Now it's on the radio.
Yeah.
That is the major label being able to do that.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so they still control. I'm gonna censor myself. So payola is still around, right? It's not like the way it was when I was coming up, where you would pay a DJ. I was a DJ in college. I remember going to somebody. Here's cash, bro. Play my record. Cool. So now majors doing it another way. Oh, we'll do a contest. We're hosting a contest on your station, whatever. It's still the same shit, right? At the end of the day, you control radio, which is still a number one way in which artists become superstars.
And to
They
piggyback,
also invested heavily in the streaming services.
Absolutely.
They learned their lesson from Napster.
Of course.
Well, they own parts of
They
it.
own parts of it.
Getting very hard to follow the money.
to piggyback
That's on
real
purpose.
quick
That's on purpose.
off
Go ahead,
that,
Carl.
because I
Okay,
remember.
sorry, I need to go sweet because we're running out of time. I want to get some artist questions. Are you an artist?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
My name's Patrick Merville. I have a question about. Thank you very much. I can say Melve because we got Haitian.
That's why I say Haitian, mon cher.
Yeah, Nula, not Kembe.
There we go.
So I have a question. This conversation began with work ethic, talking about teamwork and yes men. I want to know, so to become a successful indie, you look at like Chance the Rapper, he has a Pat the Manager, they have all these teams around you. How do you know when you have a good team, when to keep looking, how to like inspire better work ethic, or if someone not being a yes man, like someone saying no all the time, becomes like conflict oriented, you don't get work done or something like that, you know?
I think you lead by example as the artist. You know what I mean? If you're working hard and you have a good team spirit with people around you, then they know that, you shouldn't be the first one up. Someone else on your team should be waking you up or something like that. But at the same time, like if you have a really crazy work ethic and you're leading by example, you get with the program or get gone.
Well,
So
I
think it
also think artists are the CEO of your own brand, right? And you want to hire out your weaknesses. You want somebody who's got strategy, somebody who's got marketing background. You got to build a team around you and put together the pieces that you think you're going to need in order to do the work that needs to get done.
Which is true, and sounds good in theory, but if you're a new artist, you don't have any money to pay these people.
So here's what's happening.
So what you have to do, and sometimes it's trial and error, but you got to find the people who will really ride or die for you. You know what I mean? Who are willing. When I started, I was directing videos. I didn't know shit about managing, and I just met some kids who were like, "You should be a manager." And we're like, "Okay." You know what I mean? You figure it out. But I love music, and I knew I loved working with artists. And my whole thing was, I'm gonna protect them like a lion. I don't give a fuck, right? Like I'll learn as I go along. But what I do know is that artists are constantly being victimized and made vulnerable by all the institutions and the people around them. And the only way an artist can grow is if they have the room to grow, right? So I just figured it out. I mean, LP from Run the Jewels, he and I have been working together since he was 19. That's 20-something years ago. And we just kind of figured it out as we went along. We you know what I mean? We made some mistakes, but what we always did, we were serious about it, even if no one else took it seriously. We were serious about the work and what it took and the vision. Committed to it, like it wasn't about conflicts, like there wasn't about something competing for your attention, you know. And I was able to get married and have kids and all of that too, right? It's not like you can't have a life, but you've got to have a fierce determination to succeed, and you got to have people around you that you can trust, who are going to sleep on the floor with you in the train station, because that's the only way. You're on tour, you don't have any money. That's how we did it. We didn't know any better, right? We're just like, oh shit, we get to go to Europe, right? It didn't matter that you had to sleep on somebody's floor or in a train station or whatever. Hey, we were the first ones to go, right? And so that's how we did it, you know what I mean? And that's how I've always done it. I choose clients based on the music and the people.
So we have time for one more question. Can I have another artist question? Right here.
Hello, my name is Canis. I'm from Haiti as well. This is a Haitian panel. My question comes from this aspect of global market and consistency. I speak 4 languages. I'm just going to speak very personal. I have an organic following. I started at home in Haiti, took that over, crossing over into the French now. Speak English, and we have Spanish. Now that it's become a global market, is it okay to release music for different markets at the same time?
Sure.
And if yes or no, how consistent is consistent? Is it once a month? Is it once a week?
That's a good. So if you could do a song, let's say in French, right? If you want to do the same song and translate it in Spanish or whatever, that's cool. And it really depends. There are artists that have there's an artist named Russ that put a record out every week, right? There's artists that put records out every 2 weeks, right? Once a month is the minimum, to be honest, from what I see my clients doing. They're putting out records once a month, they're doing videos, but it's just that they're consistent, because your generation is like, here they go on tomorrow. If someone that you're following stops posting or goes dead, goes blank for a minute, you're on to the next one. You guys don't really have a real long attention span, right? Even the records, like records are 2 minutes long, like 2:25. You know what I mean?
It's like punk rock. Yeah.
I'm like, whoa! Like I grew up when the records were 3 minutes, 3:50. So the point is to be consistent. If you have the ability to be, multilingual, yeah, take the same record. I don't think you should do. You got to be careful of not being, a jack of all trades and a master of none, right?
Right.
So if you're doing French, build your core French fan base. You can always do a Spanish remix. You know what I mean? With somebody else. Or yourself.
I also think from a PR perspective, that's amazing. Like, telling your story, which is something that Leslie Horn from Vice was talking about a lot, and she kept saying, like, know your story, and I was back there being like, how do you find your story? But like a publicist can help you find that story. That's one of the things that we love to do, is like, get on the phone with an artist, talk with them, be their therapist basically for 30 minutes, like download their life on a phone conversation, and then while I'm taking notes on the computer, and I'm just like, that's interesting, that's interesting, that's interesting. Okay, we're gonna weed these all together in a timeline, and we're gonna present it to Carl, and beg that he interviews him at some point. But that's what makes you unique. I always try to ask people are like, oh, Michelle, get me on the Forbes 30 under 30 list, or the Billboard Power Players list, which is like, but I'm always like, what did you do? How did you stand out? What's different? And for you, you're not interested in the Power Players list, but for you, what's interesting? What makes you stick out from your peers in your genre? And being able to speak 3+ languages, 4, is an amazing press angle.
I would say one thing that's important too, and to piggyback what Michelle was saying, is that if you have international fan base, make sure your song or music or album is available everywhere. If you just put it on Spotify, you just put it on the full catalog streaming services, they don't have Spotify in Nigeria. They don't have Spotify in Jamaica. They don't have, Tidal's not available everywhere. And a lot of people don't have $20 a month for Tidal or $10 a month. So make sure it's on YouTube, make sure it's on Audiomack, make sure that someone can click a link.
Real talk, real talk.
Shameless self-plug.
And with that, Sorry.
I said YouTube first. I mean, go on.
We gotta end right there, but I think that was a good place to end. I want to thank everybody up here for your contributions.